I'm about to tell you something that could save your life. And it's hiding in plain sight on every single blood pressure reading you've ever had. Two numbers, one on top, one on the bottom. You've seen them hundreds of times. At every doctor visit, every pharmacy check, every home monitor. But here's the shocking truth. Most people over 60 were never clearly told. One of those numbers is far more dangerous than the other. And it's probably not the one you've been worrying about. After 20 years as a cardiac surgeon, I've opened thousands of chests. I've held damaged hearts in my hands. I've seen brains destroyed by stroke. I've watched families sit in hospital rooms asking the same question. How did this happen so suddenly? They felt fine yesterday. And over again. The problem was sitting there for years. On every blood pressure reading, ignored. Because everyone was watching the wrong number. Today, I'm going to show you, RSC, which number is most dangerous after 60, why it becomes more dangerous with age, and exactly what you should do about it starting today. If you're over 60, this may be the most important health video you watch this year. So stay with me, because the answer surprises almost everyone. First, let's slow down and understand the basics. When that cuff squeezes your arm, it measures the force of blood pushing against your arteries. But your heart doesn't pump steadily like a faucet. It pumps in waves, beat, relax, beat, relax. That's why you get two numbers. The top number is called systolic pressure. That's the pressure when your heart squeezes and pushes blood out. Think of it like a wave crashing against the shore. Maximum force. The bottom number is diastolic pressure. That's the pressure between beats when your heart is resting, the calm between waves. So if your reading is 150 over 90, it means 150 when your heart contracts, a 90 when your heart rests. For decades, doctors treated both numbers as equally dangerous. If either was high, medication, simple. But over the last 30 years, huge long-term studies followed millions of adults, tracking who had heart attacks, who had strokes, who developed heart failure, who died early. And something very interesting showed up, a pattern so clear, it completely changed how we look at blood pressure in older adults. Let me tell you about two real patients, because stories make this easier to understand. Margaret, 73 years old. Her blood pressure, 165 over 70. She smiled when she told me, "Doctor, my bottom number is perfect. Under 80. I've worked so hard on that." Her previous doctor told her, "As long as the bottom number looks good, don't worry too much." 6 months later, Margaret had a massive stroke. Left side paralyzed, couldn't speak clearly. The independent woman who drove herself to appointments now needed help to dress and bathe. What caused it? Years of untreated high systolic pressure silently damaging the arteries in her brain, all while everyone celebrated her great bottom number. Now Robert, 68 years old. His pressure, 128 over 95. Robert was terrified. He told me, "My bottom number keeps rising. I read that diastolic pressure is the real killer." He thought he was about to have a heart attack any day. We did every test, stress test, echo, calcium scan. His heart, actually fine. Yes, we treated the diastolic pressure, but his immediate risk was nowhere near what he feared. Two patients, opposite patterns, completely different outcomes. And this leads to the question you came here for. Which number is actually more dangerous? The top or the bottom? Before I answer, there's one critical thing you must understand. The answer changes with age. If you're 35, one answer. If you're 70, completely different answer. And since most of you watching are over 60, this is where the truth becomes crystal clear. And honestly, a little scary. Because many seniors are focusing on the wrong number every single day. Here's what the research shows. Massive studies, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people followed for decades, and they all found the same thing. After age 60, systolic blood pressure becomes 2 to 3 times more predictive of stroke and heart attack than diastolic. Not equal, not slightly worse. 2 to 3 times. That's huge. It means the top number is doing most of the damage. But here's the strange part researchers noticed. As people age, the top number goes up, the bottom number often stays normal, or even goes down. So you get readings like 160 over 70, 170 over 68, 165 over 72. Looks not too bad because the bottom number seems fine. But this pattern has a name. Isolated systolic hypertension, and it's one of the most dangerous blood pressure patterns an older adult can have. In the next part, I'm going to explain why your arteries stiffen with age, why that makes systolic pressure skyrocket, how that pressure damages your brain, heart, and kidneys, and the exact targets you should aim for. Because once you understand what's happening inside your arteries, you'll never look at your blood pressure the same way again. So why does this happen? Why does the top number suddenly become so dangerous after 60? Why does systolic pressure rise, even in people who feel perfectly healthy? The answer has nothing to do with too much blood and everything to do with your arteries themselves, because your arteries are not pipes. They're not plastic tubes. They're living tissue, flexible, elastic, alive, or at least they're supposed to be. When you're young, your arteries act like shock absorbers. Imagine a brand new rubber garden hose, soft, stretchy, flexible. When water surges through it, the hose expands slightly. It absorbs the pressure. Nothing slams into the walls. That's exactly how healthy arteries behave. When your heart pumps blood, your aorta, the big artery leaving your heart, expands like a balloon. It soaks up that pressure wave. Then between beats, it gently squeezes back, pushing blood forward smoothly. So instead of sharp pressure spikes, you get a nice, steady flow. That's why younger people often have readings like 118/78, 120/80. The difference between those numbers, called pulse pressure, is small. Everything is smooth, protected, efficient. But aging changes the structure of your arteries, and this is where the trouble begins. After about age 50, 3 things start happening inside your artery walls. Not symptoms you feel, not pain, not warning signs, just silent structural damage. First, elastic fibers break down. The stretchy material that lets arteries expand, it slowly disappears. Your body replaces it with collagen. Collagen is strong, but stiff. Think leather instead of rubber. Second, calcium builds up, yes, calcium, the same stuff in your bones. It doesn't just stay in your skeleton. Over time, tiny calcium crystals deposit inside your artery walls. Your arteries literally start hardening. This is called arterial calcification. When I operate on older patients, sometimes their arteries feel like plastic tubing, sometimes like chalk, sometimes like stone. I've actually had needles bend trying to sew into them. That's how rigid they get. Third, plaque forms, cholesterol, inflammation, scar tissue. All of it thickens the walls. Narrower, stiffer, less flexible. So instead of soft living tissue, you now have something closer to a rigid pipe. And here's the key moment when your heart pumps into a stiff pipe. What happens? There's nowhere for the pressure to go. The artery can't stretch. So all that force shoots straight upward. Your systolic pressure spikes hard. Every beat becomes a mini hammer blow. 120 becomes 140. 140 becomes 160. 160 becomes 170. Not because you have too much blood, but because your arteries lost their cushioning. But why does diastolic stay normal or drop? This part surprises people. If systolic goes up, shouldn't everything go up? No, because remember, during the resting phase, healthy arteries squeeze back. That recoil helps maintain pressure. But stiff arteries, they don't bounce back, they just sit there. So the pressure actually falls faster between beats, which means top number rises, bottom number drops. This creates something called wide pulse pressure. For example, 170/65. That big gap is screaming one thing. Your arteries are stiff, very stiff. And that stiffness is what makes systolic so dangerous. Now let me explain what that high systolic pressure actually does. Because this isn't just a number problem. This is a damage problem. Every single heartbeat, that high pressure is slamming into your organs. About 70 times per minute, 100,000 times per day. 35 million times per year. Imagine tapping a glass with a spoon. Once, nothing happens. 1,000 times, tiny cracks. Millions of times, it shatters. That's what elevated systolic pressure does inside your body. Your brain suffers first. The blood vessels in your brain are tiny and fragile. They are not designed to handle high pressure. Chronic systolic spikes cause microtears, tiny clots, microscopic strokes. You don't feel them, you don't notice them, but over years, those tiny injuries add up. Memory problems. Slower thinking, confusion, personality changes. Many cases labeled Alzheimer's are actually vascular dementia from years of high systolic pressure. That's something most people never hear. Then your heart pays the price. Think about what your heart has to do. It has to push blood against that high pressure, like trying to pump air into an overinflated tire. So your heart muscle thickens, bigger, stronger, but stiffer, and stiff muscle doesn't fill properly, which leads to heart failure. Not from one dramatic heart attack, but from 10-20 years of overworking against high systolic pressure. I see this constantly in surgery. He never had a heart attack, but the heart is exhausted, enlarged, failing, all from pressure overload, and your kidneys get damaged too. Your kidneys are filters made of millions of tiny blood vessels. High pressure scars them. Once kidney function declines, blood pressure gets even worse. Now you're stuck in a vicious cycle. High pressure, kidney damage, higher pressure, and eventually, dialysis. So now you understand the truth. Systolic pressure isn't just a number. It's a force, a mechanical force, repeated millions of times, quietly damaging your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your eyes, year after year, until one day, something breaks, a stroke. So now you understand the danger. You understand why systolic pressure rises with age. You understand why stiff arteries turn every heartbeat into a hammer. And you understand something most people your age never hear clearly. After 60, the top number is the one that predicts whether you live independently or end up disabled by stroke. Not the bottom number, the top one. Always. Now let's talk about what actually saves lives, because information without action is useless. And this part is where most doctors fail patients. They explain the risk, but they never give a simple, practical plan. So let me give you exactly that. No theory, just what works. Step 1, know your real target. This is critical. If you remember nothing else from this entire video, remember this. If you are over 60 years old, your systolic blood pressure should be under 130, not 150, not 145, not a little high for your age, under 130. Period. Multiple large trials prove this. When systolic drops below 130, strokes drop dramatically, heart attacks drop, heart failure drops, even dementia risk drops. We're not talking small improvements. We're talking 30 to 40% reductions. That's life-changing. That's independent saving. But here's the mistake people make. They only check blood pressure at the doctor's office once every 6 months. That's like checking your bank account twice a year and hoping nothing goes wrong. You need data, real numbers, at home. Step 2, measure at home. This is non-negotiable. Every single one of my patients owns a home blood pressure monitor because office readings lie. Let me say that again. Office readings lie. Some people spike from anxiety. Some people relax and look normal. Neither reflects reality. Home numbers tell the truth. Here's how. Morning, before coffee or meds. Evening, before dinner. Sit quietly, 5 minutes. Feet flat, back supported. Arm at heart level. Take 2 readings, write them down. Do this for 1 week. Now you have your true baseline, not guesswork. Facts, and facts guide treatment. Step 3, fix what you can control first. Before medication, before anything complicated. These alone can drop systolic 10-20 points, sometimes more. And that's equivalent to adding another drug. Cut sodium aggressively. This is huge. Most people think, I don't use much salt. But 80% of sodium comes from processed food, not the salt shaker. Bread soups, sauces, frozen meals, restaurant food. They're loaded. Your goal, under 1,500-2,000 milliliters per day. When patients actually hit this, I routinely see 8, 10, sometimes 15-point drops in systolic just from sodium reduction. That's massive. Lose excess weight. Here's the math. Every 2 pounds lost, about 1 point systolic drop. Lose 20 pounds, you might drop 10 points. That's often the difference between needing 3 meds and 1. Move your body daily, and I don't mean CrossFit, I mean walking 30 minutes most days. Walking literally makes arteries more elastic. It improves endothelial function. It lowers stiffness. You're not just burning calories, you're physically making your arteries younger. That's powerful. Limit alcohol. More than 1-2 drinks daily? Systolic climbs, quietly, consistently. I've seen people drop 8 to 10 points just by cutting nightly alcohol. No pills, just one habit change. Manage stress. Because stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, they clamp down your vessels instantly. Pressure spikes, daily stress, daily damage, breathing exercises, walking, prayer, meditation, time outdoors, whatever calms you, do it daily. This is medicine, not self-help fluff. Step 4, don't fear medication. Now let's be honest. For many people over 60, lifestyle changes aren't enough. And this is where pride hurts people. They say, I don't want to depend on pills. Listen carefully. Blood pressure medication is not failure. It's protection. It's a seatbelt. You hope you don't need it, but you're grateful it's there. Because untreated systolic hypertension is far more dangerous than any modern medication. These drugs have saved millions of lives, literally millions. Most people need one medication, sometimes two, sometimes three. That's normal, not excessive, not too many, normal. Your goal isn't fewer pills, your goal is fewer strokes. Big difference. And here's the key. Never stop meds on your own, ever. Sudden rebound spikes can be deadly. Always work with your doctor. Adjust slowly, safely. Step 5, track trends, not single numbers. One high reading, ignore it. You had bad sleep, you were stressed. It happens. What matters is the average. Think weeks, not minutes. Your brain doesn't care about one spike. It cares about years of exposure. Lower the average, you lower risk. Simple. Let me bring this home with one final thought. I want you to picture two futures. Same person, same age, same genetics, only one difference. Future 1, systolic stays 155, 165. Not terrible. Just aging. 10 years later, stroke, walker, memory loss, dependence. Family becomes caregivers, life shrinks. Future 2, systolic controlled at 120, 125, same person, same body. 10 years later, traveling, driving, gardening, playing with grandkids, independent, strong, same genetics, different number. That's it. One number changed everything. And that's why this matters so much. Not because doctors like guidelines, not because numbers look pretty, because those numbers predict your freedom, your independence, your life. So here's your simple plan starting today. Buy a monitor, measure twice daily, aim for systolic under 130. Reduce sodium, walk daily, lose excess weight, take meds if prescribed, stay consistent. That's it. No complicated hacks, no miracle supplements, just proven science. Your heart has beaten billions of times for you without asking for anything. The least we can do is protect it.